Okay, hopefully you can all hear me. Good morning. We are here to talk to you about OVO's journey to justifying our brand media investment using real exposure to prove the impact that our brand media has on our brand health metrics. But before we do that, hi, I'm Joe. I work for OVO and I look after all things brand advertising related. In case you haven't heard of OVO, and I really hope that is a dwindling number of you in the audience, given the job that I do. OVO was founded in 2009. We are an energy tech brand with 4 million customers in the UK, and that makes us the fourth largest energy company in the UK. We have a core ambition, to deliver energy to our customers in a way that is better for the planet, for people, and for their wallets. Dan?
And I'm Dan. Hi, guys. I'm Sales Director at Beatgrid. So for anyone that doesn't know, we are a cross-channel measurement partner. We are bringing a fresh perspective to the space, I would say, and helping to raise the bar in terms of people such as Joe or yourselves getting access to more robust brand measurement. So I'm assuming we have some marketers in the room somewhere. If so, I'm sure you'll be able to relate to this in one way or another, right? We are all very aware of the benefits of combining long-term brand building and short-term performance. However, often when it comes to action, it's normally short-term that wins out. And why is that? Look, often performance can look good on a dashboard. It's traditionally been easier to optimize and it's traditionally been easier to measure. But that is why we're here today. This is not a reflection of OVO. This is an industry-wide challenge that we're seeing across the entire media landscape. And what we're here to do today is to prove to you how OVO have unlocked more brand investment through changing the way they capture, measure, and present their data. And we are going to do this in approximately 12 minutes.
We're certainly going to try. Okay, let's dig straight in. So I'm going to ask you to cast your minds back to the end of 2022. We'd just come out of a particularly painful pandemic, and people were struggling financially. We then had a war in Ukraine soon afterwards, which sent energy prices skyrocketing and a number of smaller energy companies collapsing. And in part, that led to not only an energy crisis, but also a cost of living crisis in the UK. And what we saw was a lot of political tension and political intervention in the forms of energy price caps. So not a great macro environment to be operating in, as the point on the left of that slide says. But nevertheless, here I am, joining OVO, the end of 2022. And at the time, we'd been offline in all brand media for about 15 months, so quite a long time for a company of our size. And we wanted to change it and change it quickly. So by March 23, we'd launched a national out-of-home campaign, which thankfully led to a very quick uptick in our brand health metrics. But I should say at this point, we had grander ambitions. We obviously wanted to have a full media mix live, led by AV. But let's be honest, AV can be a little bit of a leap of faith for any business, particularly one like ours, which at the time didn't have an econometrics model. We'd only dabbled with AV in the past, and with all the good insight and all the good will in the world, we had to prove that our other channels were working, that brand was contributing, and build the trust within the business before we kind of pitched AV. And we did that in a strategic, phased channel introduction way. And by September 23, we were making good progress. We'd launched press, audio, digital, and online video. We were already doing in-channel, kind of siloed brand lift studies in digital channels, helping us to optimize those channels. But what it didn't give us was a view of our holistic media mix and the investment and where to put it. So we tried to fill that gap with an independent research study. Unfortunately, that didn't stand up to scrutiny. And it didn't stand up to scrutiny because we did it with a panel and an opportunity to see survey. And one simple issue. People couldn't remember where they'd been last week, what they might have seen of our ads. Human nature, I suppose. You forget the mundane. Nevertheless, we moved on. We did a media audit which showed great value being delivered by our media agency. So shout out to Good Stuff if anybody's here, doing a great job. And at the time, we had started to build that trust in all of the channels that were already live. And it was the right time to put AV forward as a business case. And I'm pleased to say that by September 24, we'd not only had approval on that business case, but we'd gone live in linear TV and in BVOD. And to borrow from Spider-Man, for those Marvel fans amongst you, with great AV comes great responsibility. And our responsibility was to prove that AV worked, that it outperformed other channels, that it deserved a place in our mix in the future, and that it was worth the upfront investment in creative and in media.
So when I was first approached by Joe and his team, and also the lovely team at Good Stuff, it was really clear that there were three non-negotiables to measurement. Firstly, it had to be deterministic. So as Joe's already mentioned, they had a brand tracker, and it would show that something has changed in their brand health metrics. However, it couldn't pinpoint the root cause, and it wouldn't necessarily attribute the impact of media on that. Next up, it had to be holistic. So he's already mentioned the siloed brand studies. These are great, but it didn't take into account cross-channel synergies, which they needed to make informed data-led decisions about their budget and their channel allocations moving forwards. And that feeds nicely into the final point. It had to be actionable. OVO did not just want a snapshot of the past, it had to supercharge their future. So the task was simple. Measure OVO's channel mix, which we can see here, prove AV's effectiveness, deliver insights that are deterministic, holistic, actionable, and by the way, it's the first time we've been on AV in 3 years, so there's a lot of eyes on this, so thank you for that one, Joe.
You're welcome.
So I'm sure many of you all know that cross-channel measurement is pretty complex, right? You'll have seen it in a trade press, you'll have experienced it yourselves maybe. And the reason for that is that through traditional methodologies, it's really difficult to connect these dots because of the data silos, the fragmentation, the black boxing. And even outside of that, data is often just not compatible. But what does connect these dots is the consumer. And what connects the consumer? The mobile phone. Sadly, I did not bring the parachute with me today, but next time. So Beatgrid overcomes these fragmentation issues with single source measurement. It's based on the people, not the channel. And what this means is that we're able to help Joe out and help OVO understand exactly which channels are having a direct impact on their brand metrics, which channels are delivering incremental reach to maximize and spread the message far and wide, and where the overlaps are. Joe, just before we get into how we do it, when you had to make the business case internally for Beatgrid, how was the tech described?
Quite honestly, creepy, but for us as marketeers, awesome.
Creepy but awesome, nearly the title of the talk, but didn't quite make it. So, the secret weapon, Beatgrid's audio content recognition, or our ACR tech. What this does is allows us to determine exactly which channel consumers have been exposed to across the entire plan. So how it works is that all of our 17,500 panelists will download a Beatgrid app, which has the ACR built into it. Once they have the app, it sits in the background, and it passively measures their exposure to the OVO campaign, which you can see on the screen here. The way it measures is through the phone's microphone. So the real smart bit is how we determine exactly which channel that exposure has come from. We apply a unique but completely inaudible pitch change to the creatives per channel. And what this means is that to the human ear, there is no change to the pitch. You cannot hear the difference at all, but our ACR is able to recognize that and determine exactly which channel that has come from. Now, because we also know, as we take our friends everywhere with us, which directions our panelists are facing, how fast they're traveling, we can ring-fence OVOs out of home site list and then give them a steer as to which consumers on our panel also saw their saw their outdoor ad. And what this means is we're giving you like-for-like comparable insights across all forms of AV, outdoor, audio, digital video, and the rest. Some of you are probably thinking that sounds ridiculous. That is not possible. Joe had the exact same immediate reaction when we first started working together.
I did.
We actually had to take an old copy, pitch it, and send it back for proof that it sounded the same. Joe, how did it sound?
You can't tell the difference.
There we go. So basically what this meant now is we've got all these exposures from our panelists. That allows us to know exactly who's been exposed to OVO's campaign and who hasn't. Now what we can do here is send a brand lift survey, and that means we're getting brand uplift by channel. But most importantly, This is based on real people who have actually seen OVO's campaign in the wild, where it is meant to be seen. We are not using opportunity to see. We are not simulating exposures. This is real exposure to give you real impact, channel by channel. So just before we get stuck into it, actually, Joe, let's do it. Let us know what some of your favorite stats are.
Okay, so what did we learn? Well, we learned that we reached 81% of our target demographic, around 23.5 million people. And we got under the hood a little bit of our targeting efficiency, and that was at 76% versus our target audience. Now, that might not sound great, but we always know that we'll reach people outside of our target audience, particularly in broadcast channels. So we were quite pleased with that as a first take. Still room for improvement, but pretty good overall. And I think those two stats for us, we kind of took as a mini audit, let's say, of our media agency, their estimates for reach that they were giving us and their proficiency at targeting against our audience. Sure, they loved us for that, but good for us nonetheless. And in terms of brand health metrics, our primary KPI, spontaneous brand awareness, SBA, we uplifted by 6% with the campaign and 4% for aided awareness. And we were able to directly link that to our brand media campaign. No extraneous influences. We also started to dig in a little bit into the data and get some really useful optimizations for our next wave of activity. We looked at campaign frequency, and the optimal level for driving the best SBA uplift is 10 plus. So next time around, we increased our opportunities to see in our AV from 8.5 to 10. And when you layer in all of our other channels on top, we were well above that. Very briefly on channels, we had a chart like this for all of the different channels, but these are our best three performing. AV clearly cementing its place in the mix with the strongest results overall, and radio following up. But all channels saw an uplift in awareness versus control. And worth saying, mini caveat, some of these numbers look quite high, but remember, we've been off air in AV for 3 years. So our starting point was probably a little bit lower than you'd expect from a brand of our size. We looked at incremental reach. This was also great. We were used to seeing either overall campaign reach or individual channel reach. We'd never been able to layer in individual channels on top of our lead channel, linear TV, and see the incremental reach each channel is providing. And radio coming in really strong at 11%. And consequently, we upweighted what was a fairly low budget for the next campaign in radio by another 5.5% of our total campaign spend. So really great learning for us to have. And finally, as part of the Beatgrid measurement, we ran a creative effectiveness test. We had 2 different mid-funnel prop-based creatives running in exclusive periods, one for solar and one for electric vehicles. And we looked to see which message was clearest, which resonated best with our target audience. Now, for those of you who work for the competition, I'm not going to tell you which one won, for obvious reasons, but Creative 1 far outperformed the other creative, and we went on to exclusively run that creative in our next campaign burst. And as you'd expect, all of these learnings were great for us. We shouted them from the hilltops. We did a road trip around the business, taking them to the senior leadership team and all the different departments. And I'm pleased to say that AV is now king for us. But what's next? We're not a team to rest on our laurels, and I live by the motto, you don't ask, you don't get. And that's exactly what we did with Dan and team. We asked them to go further and faster, to borrow a political slogan, and to give us better, more granular channel learnings that we could use in the future. And many of you will be used to seeing some of these coming out of the likes of performance trading campaigns where other measurement partners are attributing to sales. But I'm excited to say this is the first time anyone's ever done it in the brand space, and I'm really excited about implementing these from as soon as H2 this year. So we'll get day part and which are performing well for us, so we can skew away from the day parts that aren't working well. What is our optimal frequency in AV and audio to drive the best uplift? So more granular than the campaign frequency you saw earlier in this deck. Which genre is performing well? Is it action? Is it sci-fi? Is it drama? Which TV channels and which audio channels should we skew away from? And what's our regional impact? And final point, these learnings aren't meant to live in isolation. They're not meant to work by themselves. They're meant to live and cohabit with econometrics. And I'm looking forward to putting them in play with Dan and team later this year.
Right, we're getting booted off. Guys, this has been so much fun. Thank you. You've seen in a short space of time we've unlocked more brand investment at OVO, which is great. AV has literally gone from 0 to hero. Radio got a significant budget increase because it drives incremental reach and spontaneous brand awareness. OVO is now optimising their mix with Beatgrid learnings, and brand budgets are stronger than ever. No time for questions. Find us in the bar. Hit us up on LinkedIn. We'd love to talk to you.
Thank you.